Postpartum immune rebound will be responsible for the abrupt onset of symptoms. The overactive dopamine will lead to delusions and hallucinations. The disrupted serotonin and GABA will create mood instability and anxiety. The poor cortisol regulation will create a constant state of stress. And finally, the overactive microglia, which are the immune cells of the brain, will lead to confusion and agitation. Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Nathalie, a psychiatrist and psychotherapist. Thank you for joining me today. I am making this podcast to share clear, reassuring, and helpful information about mental health. My goal is to reduce stigma, promote understanding, facilitate collaboration between patients, caregivers, and doctors, and above all, encourage each and every one of you to seek help as early as possible. In the previous episode, we discussed perinatal depression and baby blues. If you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to follow the link, watch it with your loved ones, and subscribe. This information will help you support those around you and take care of yourself without shame or guilt. Today, we will continue to discuss perinatal disorders that occur during and after pregnancy. And this time, we are going to focus on puerperal psychosis. Imagine a young mother of 28 years old who gave birth 10 days ago. For several nights, she has hardly slept. She is saying that her baby is possessed, that spirits want to steal him, and she no longer takes care of him. She is restless, talks a lot, sometimes incoherently. Her words are difficult to follow. She stares into space and whispers to herself when alone, and her mood swings rapidly. Her family first thinks of a spiritual problem, but in reality, this is a disorder that affects her mental health. Puerperal psychosis is a rare but serious psychotic condition, usually appearing within the first 4 weeks after childbirth. Unlike baby blues or postpartum depression, it's a medical emergency. It's vital to act quickly to protect both the mother and the baby. Puerperal psychosis, like all psychosis, is characterized by a break from reality, with impaired judgment, denial of illness, loss of insight. A patient doesn't recognize themselves as ill. They often project the problem outward onto their environment as a way of preserving their psychological integrity. They will say, for instance, I am the victim of persecution. Psychotic symptoms are as followed. Delusion, which are false, fixed beliefs not shared by the social group, resistant to reasoning or proof. An example can be a patient who is convinced that the FBI is spying on her to steal her baby because a voice from the ceiling told her so. Another symptom could be hallucination. There are perceptions without external stimuli. The mother hears voices telling her to get rid of her child for his own good or mocking her. Visual hallucinations may occur too. She might see a fearing face or a laughing face approaching her baby. As an example, in puerperal psychosis, delusion themes often revolve around the baby, the mother, and the perinatal event. Psychomotor agitation is also noted. It can start as mental and physical restlessness. The patient cannot stay still. Her thoughts race. Her speech becomes pressured and incoherent. She can become aggressive towards herself or others. Puerperal psychosis is a psychiatric emergency. It's rarer than perinatal depression, but when it occurs, the patient in denial struggles to recognize her illness Close relatives must intervene to ensure rapid medical care since there is a real risk of lethal aggression against herself or her baby. So she can hereby commit an infanticide, hence the urgency. Now, let's talk more about what is happening in the brain. The symptoms experienced by the patient are a consequence of mechanisms that are biological and psychological in nature. Puerperal psychosis is not a weakness of character or curse. It has clear biological mechanism. The first one, we notice a sudden drop in placental hormones. During pregnancy, estrogen and progesterone levels are very high and stabilize mood. After delivery, their massive drop, about 90 to 95%, destabilizes hormones and neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. In puerperal psychosis, this chemical imbalance leads to mood instability, anxiety, and dopamine overactivity, causes delusions and hallucinations. Now, let's talk about the postpartum immune rebound and inflammation, which plays an important role in the occurrence of this disorder. During pregnancy, the immune system is suppressed up to a certain level in order to tolerate the fetus. After delivery, it rebounds sharply, triggering an inflammatory storm. Cytokines, which are inflammatory cells, cross the blood-brain barrier, activating microglia, which are brain immune cells, and they are causing disruption in neurotransmitters balance and neuronal communication. As a result, the mother can experience a brief episode of confusion with disorientation, meaning the mother doesn't know where she is nor recall the current day of the week. Agitation can also occur. Now, let's talk about the frontolimbic dysregulation. The prefrontal cortex, meaning this part of the brain, is responsible for judgment, decision making, planning, emotional regulation, and social behavior. This part of the brain becomes hypoactive. The limbic system, which is responsible for emotions, the affects and memory, and which is mainly made of the amygdala and the hippocampus, become hyperactive. That means very active. So these two systems don't function well together. The prefrontal cortex is not able to regulate the emotions generated by the limbic system, resulting into a dysregulation. As a result, there is poor control, disinhibition, the mother's judgment is altered, and she can say or do things that she wouldn't have said or done if her emotions were correctly regulated. She also experiences delusions with heavy emotional tonality and intense hallucinations. Do not worry, I will break down the meaning of those signs in the coming minutes. Now, let's talk more about how the symptoms manifest. As noted earlier, core symptoms include delusions with a content shaped by the patient's sociocultural context. In Africa, for instance, the mother would say the baby is possessed. It must be sacrificed to be saved. Spirits want to harm him. A patient in America would say, the government is spying on me. Cameras are hidden in my home. They want to take my baby. It is the FBI. Let me stop a bit on delusions. These are false, implausible beliefs deeply anchored in the patient's mind, lived as personal experiences that dictate behavior. They may lead to depressive mood if the delusional theme is sad. They significantly affect the person's social and professional functioning, meaning that there is a clear distinction between the person's ability before and after the onset of the disease. Whether mystical or political in content, the structure of the delusion is the same. The theme is persecution. The person is persecuted by an external force, which is not factually true. There is a high impact on the personal experience of the person, affecting her mood and behavior and disturbing her previous functioning. What matters is not the content, the story itself with all the details, but the structure of the story, the incoherence, and the impact on functioning. In both cases, the mother can no longer function normally. She no longer takes care of herself or the baby. Her daily activities are disrupted and her relationships are affected. She withdraws more and may become aggressive as her delusion develops and she grows more convinced of it. In this case, the delusion can lead to aggression directly against herself or the baby. The mother lives in fear and anxiety. What she's experiencing is genuine psychological suffering. The prescribed medication will restore the brain chemicals balance and support a return to normal functioning, where the patient can gradually gain insight into her delusion and detach from it. Other symptoms can be hallucinations, which are like radio full of static. The person is seeing or perceiving things that do not exist in a reality, like intrusive voices or a distortion of the face of a baby, which can reinforce the delusional belief. Mood changes can also occur. It could be elation with a high mood, or depression with a sad mood, or emotional instability or anxiety. Somatic complaints could also appear, especially among African women, where sadness is often expressed physically. Patients will complain about chest heaviness, stomach or back pain, heat sensations in their head or feet, painful joints, or prolonged fatigue. In Africa, we have observed that delayed treatment is common. Families misinterpret symptoms as spiritual or cultural, reinforcing stigma and isolation, and delaying psychiatric care. Many psychiatrists recommend integrating cultural dimensions into treatment rather than opposing them outright. But it is extremely important to avoid drinking drugs you are unsure about because it could cause kidney damage over time and you can lose your kidney function permanently. Now, let's talk about some risk factors. Who is most at risk? The people with personal or family history of psychiatric illnesses, especially bipolar or manic disorders. Women in their first pregnancy. African authors have reported a high incidence among primiparous. People having also severe medical or obstetric complications. People exposed to psychosocial stress, especially when it is prolonged, such as isolation, domestic violence, neonatal death, or severe illness with a baby requiring intensive care. Some people could also be affected by sociocultural pressure. For instance, preference given to a male child, rejection of twins or albino infants in certain communities. Another important risk factor could also be people doing drugs, consuming alcohol or addictive substances. I'm not saying that if your partner presents this disease, it means that she was doing drugs. Let it be clear. Anyone can develop this disorder, but doing drugs enhances only the probability, the risk of developing the disorder. Nearly 50% of women with puerperal psychosis later develop bipolar 1 disorder, especially when there is a family history involved. This highlights the importance of preventive follow-up for future pregnancies. Now, let's talk about prevention and management. Primary and secondary prevention are important. Prenatal screening is needed to identify at-risk women. Psychological follow-up, social and family support are also important. Preventive support with mood stabilizer and other appropriate medication highly reduce recurrence risk by nearly 40%. Early intervention is key to preventing further episodes. We need an emergency management, meaning the patient will be hospitalized, ideally in a mother-baby unit, to avoid separation with the baby. But usually in our African context, it is unavailable. So family support is vital to avoid prolonged separation. The doctor will prescribe medicines which are compatible with breastfeeding whenever possible. Multidisciplinary care is highly efficient. Psychiatrists, neonatologists, pediatricians should be involved as needed. Mother-baby monitoring is crucial. Constant vigilance is needed to prevent infanticide. The mother must never be left alone with the baby, especially if she is not stabilized yet. As we said, the approach must be multidimensional. For the social and cultural support, the family involvement is very much needed, and respect for cultural context in therapy is advised. The psychiatrist's role is not to be in opposition, but guidance towards the patient's well-being, as she defines it. Seeking help is important. The role of family and partner is crucial to act as a relay, detecting early warning signs, to ensure quick access to care, to provide indispensable emotional and social support for rehabilitation. With prompt and appropriate measures and treatment, many women recover and return to a normal life. If you or someone close to you is in this situation, do not hesitate to consult a psychiatrist or confide in a trusted person who can help connect you with mental health professionals. Above all, take care of yourself and your loved ones. This was Dr. Natalie at your service. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a like, subscribe, and most importantly, share it, because this information can help many people and families and truly change lives. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. I will dedicate an entire episode to answering you. See you soon in another Psychoeducation podcast.